Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Helen Wu. I'm a children's book author and illustrator and the associate publisher of Yeehoo Press. Today, I'm honored to host this publishing webinar together with children's book author Kathleen Blasi. Kathleen will talk about telling true tales, and I will talk about the collaborative process of picture book making. We will also have a Q&A in the end of the webinar. You can send your questions in the chat, and now I'm gonna go off camera and turn this over to Kathleen. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. I see some familiar names. That support means a lot to us. Thanks so much. My name is Kathleen Blasi, and I live in Western New York. I'm a children's author. I am a member of the SCBWI, the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, as well as our local group. I'm on the board for Rochester Area Children's Writers and Illustrators. And I have attended many of these webinars over the last, say, 15 months, like we all have. And Helen and I both hope that you have some good takeaways from this one. I have 3 published books and my 4th one on the way with Yeehoo Press and Helen, and I'm honored to be here today to present with her. And as Helen mentioned, my job is to talk about telling true tales. So let me just share my screen with you. And get that rolling. And please give me the thumbs up if you can see that. Great, okay, thank you. So I'm going to be talking about telling true tales and the different ways to do that. And I like to think of this in a broader way than maybe most of us initially think. And by the way, happy Children's Book Week. That's why Helen and I are here today celebrating Children's Book Week with you all. I'd like to begin by just telling you a little bit about my own true tale. I come from a very large family. I have 6 brothers. And if that doesn't give me enough material for story, I'm not sure what would. And from a very young age, I have been a reader and a writer. In fact, my 4th grade teacher was the one who, I want to say, allowed me to see myself as a writer for the first time. And it was just because she told me something I wrote was good. And that's the power of teachers, right? My first 3 published books, my first book was actually Name of Honor, which is historical fiction, middle grade. And around the same time as that one came out, my nonfiction book about youth sports came out, both with Mondo Publishing in the educational market, both middle grade. And then in January 2020, my first picture book was published with Sterling Children's Books called HOSEA Plays On. I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. And then I'm super excited to celebrate the launch and publication of MILO'S Moonlight Mission, which is the book I'm doing with Helen and Yeehoo Press. So we're going to begin today by talking about sort of the notion of truth. And when we think of the truth in children's literature, naturally we immediately think of nonfiction because, okay, there's nothing truer than that, right? But I'd like to look at that a little bit broader, the truth in children's literature. Memoir can fall under nonfiction. Informational fiction is sort of a new to me term. I think it's been, with all the exciting narrative nonfiction coming out, I really like that this phrase was coined, informational fiction. And creative or narrative nonfiction, which is another way of telling the truth. And I'm using HOSEA Plays On as an example here because this is a true story about a musician, HOSEA Missouri Taylor Jr. He passed away. And when I learned about him, I immediately wanted to write a children's story about him. But I put words in HOSEA's mouth in the text, as you can see in the image on the left. So that sort of takes it out of the strict nonfiction sense. But the truth of the story remains. The facts are laid out in the author's note, and the picture book biography about HOSEA is carried through in a creative narrative way. And we'll talk about fiction. We're going to talk a lot about fiction. And sometimes people don't think of truth in fiction, but we're going to just kind of examine that a little more closely today. One of my literary heroes who really reflects this personally for me is Toni Morrison. She says, okay, you guys are in, there we go. The work I do frequently falls in the minds of most people into that realm of fiction called fantastic, or mythic, or magical, or unbelievable. I'm not comfortable with these labels. I consider that my single gravest responsibility, in spite of that magic, is not to lie. Therefore, the crucial distinction for me is not the difference between fact and fiction, but the distinction between fact and truth. And I just love that quote, and it sort of carries me as an author when I'm exploring different ways of telling a story. So truth and fiction, I'm breaking this down into universal truths and personal truths. And I'm sure my writer friends out there are familiar with this. This is a way that I can kind of pick a lens to tell a story through. We're going to start with the universal truth and actually spend a little bit more time on the personal truths, actually a lot more time. So universal truths are basically what matters to kids. Here's a few examples from one of my favorite writing picture books by Anne Whitford Paul. These 6 items that I've put up on the screen are hers, but there are many more in the book, and I highly recommend picture book writers take a look at this. Everything is new to children. Children live in the present. Children have had few experiences. Children have strong emotions. Sometimes childhood is not happy, and children long to be independent. So these are truths about children that you can reflect in your writing. For me, some of the themes or truths that I've touched on in the picture books that I've written, not yet published. Some of them are, but actually Milo is the first one, the one that I'm going to talk about today. Children long for quality time with those they love. Children often fear change. Children are literal, which can offer a great humor slant to your story. And children can be more open-minded than adults. That's a picture book that I'm working on right now that takes place at a time when during World War II, and there's a bullying aspect to it, and the children in the story do reflect that they are more open-minded than the adults around them. So now we'll talk about personal truths. And I love the song Every Day I Write the Book by Elvis Costello. And it really is the life of a writer. Excuse me. What you bring to your writing are your own truths and your own values. And when we look at the world around us, we sort of notice things and tuck them away. And sometimes we just let them slide by. But the writer's mind lets almost nothing slide by. And that's why I love this quote, every day I write the book. Jane Yolen refers to this as gathering. All the things that happen to us, around us, within us are potential fuel for the writing life. There's no suggested urgency in calling this gathering, which is why I love that term. Rather, it's something measured and thoughtful. Writers pay attention, right? For instance, that guy at the corner store who shows up every day at the same time, say 9:07, and he's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and when he talks, the cigarette bounces. It's so specific. These are the things that can go unnoticed or noticed for the writer. And so you might say, well, who cares about that? Well, I do as a writer, and I'm sure that you do too. And together, if we care about that and we bring it to our writing, our readers will care too. And then I have something that I hope makes my audience smile when they read it. This is the beauty of virtual presenting, right? Can't read my audience, but that I found this cartoon quite a while ago, and it rang true, and I thought it was very appropriate to share with you today. So I'm going to pause here and see if we can maybe look at your world around you in a unique way, or a quirky person in your life, and just take maybe 30 seconds to choose a quirky person in your life, list some characteristics that make that person unique. And later on, you know, maybe for homework, you can play with applying them to one of the characters in your story, or put them in the story and write some dialogue and see how those two characters, the quirky one that the person doesn't know that you're using them as a model for, and one of the characters in your story. And you could be really surprised what happens. I've done this in my own writing. In A Name of Honor, I had to do it when I was stuck in a scene, and I put someone in there who really wasn't in the story, and he started talking to my character, who was a little boy about 8 years old, and it ended up being a really cute, funny scene in the story that probably wouldn't have landed there had I not tried that. So I'm just going to be quiet here for a little bit and let you see if you can jot down some ideas. Okay, so you can save the rest for homework. I want to address maybe my non-writer people in the audience. Anytime I've talked with, you know, anybody that I meet at an event or whatever, people often say, I always wanted to write a story, and they don't know what to write about. And I do believe that everyone has a story. So my supposedly non-writer friends who are watching today, this is for you too. Give it a shot. Maybe you'll be able to write a story based on what you come up with. But let's talk about, I keep talking about this personal truth and why it's important to me, but why does it matter? Well, from personal connection comes authenticity. This will create the connection between the writer and the reader. And this is my goal as a writer. My goal is to connect with my reader, the adult who's reading the story to the child who's taking it in, or the independent reader child reader who's reading the story. And that truth lends authenticity, and that authenticity can deliver an emotional impact. And how do I know when I've achieved that? I have a few photos to share with you that I found when HOSEA Plays On came out. This was very gratifying to see the book received and experienced by children in all these different ways. And I hope the same experience happens with Milo. There's a very emotional, strong connection for me to that story as well. So I hope that happens too. And I'm going to show you some ways that my personal truth works its way into story, and how it can for you too. If you just look at the world around you and look at your own life, you will be hard pressed to stop coming up with ideas. This first one that's a photo of my grandmother, and she is the inspiration for my middle grade novel, A Name of Honor. It is a family history, historical fiction, but based on her life. And this young lady is the inspiration for a character in a middle grade novel that I'm working on. She is my cousin Jane. She has cerebral palsy, and she is one of the most amazing people I've ever met. And she has landed in a story. She's aware of it though, and she's okay with it. My parents have worked their way into my stories. I'm going to share a very specific example about that in just a minute. My family, this is my husband and my 2 daughters, they have worked their way into my stories in ways that they don't even realize. But MILO'S Moonlight Mission is a very strong family connection for me. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But these things all have worked their way into my story. That last one, the flag that's waving there in the wind, that is, this is an example of that gathering. Not so much my family history and my experience, but this gathering. I was driving to a school visit, And I was on the highway, and this just huge American flag was waving in the wind, and it just struck me. It was just very beautiful and very graceful. I got to the school, and I was telling the students about this, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but that image will not leave me, and I'm going to somehow use it in one of my pieces of writing. And I did. I used it in a middle grade historical fiction book that takes place during the civil rights movement. It was just what I needed to add to a scene to make it more poignant. We're going to pause here again just for, I swear, 30 seconds. And I want you to do what I did and think back on maybe the last week or month into a moment that struck you, and see if you can use this specificity in a work in progress, maybe to set a scene like I did with that flag. So go ahead for just about 30 seconds. Okay, thank you for humoring me. So I'm going to talk now about different ways that personal truth has worked its way into story and some stories that I've written. In an indirect way, HOSEA plays on. Now, HOSEA plays on is about somebody else. It's not about me. And it's his story. So how did my personal truth work its way in here? Well, what compelled me to write the story is actually the anchor. When I read about him, I was impressed with his kindness, his sense of community, and this notion of legacy. And those are things that are important to me as well, expressing acts of kindness, my community. So I connected with HOSEA in that way, and I brought my own values to the story in order to connect with him and figure out a way to tell the story. In a smaller way, this photo of my parents that I showed you earlier, I'm going to go back to, this is now, I have to set the tone here, because this is the early 1950s when my parents were dating. And my father is Irish and my mother is Italian. And my father's mother was not pleased about this. She wanted my father to have a nice little Irish girl to date and to eventually marry. So, and they needed permission to get married because they were so young. So my father said, but Mom, okay, she's Italian, but at least she's Catholic. And that's all my grandmother needed to hear was, oh, she's Catholic. So, okay, we're good to go. All right, so that story has been told in my family over the years, and it happened in 1950, 1951. Many decades later, I used that idea, that sense that gave me in my middle grade novel that takes place during the civil rights movement. And I used it here. This is one small part of this novel. According to Dad, Nana wanted him to marry an Italian girl like generations of Italians had. So when he first met Mom, who was Polish, Nana didn't approve. When Dad proposed, Nana actually cried. That was when he played his ace. Hey, Ma, at least she's Catholic. So thank you, Mom and Dad, for giving me that scene in my novel that is yet to be published, and it's called True Colors. My personal truth worked its way into my book with Yeehoo Press, Milo's Moonlight Mission, in a very big way. Photo on the left is my daughter and my nephew. They are clearly very close. They were actually watching Lady and the Tramp in this photo, and my daughter was scared. So my nephew knew that, and he put his arm around her. So you can see that closeness that they share. This is the nephew who was sleeping at my house the night that the meteor storm that inspired Milo's Moonlight Mission happened. So we packed up, we went outside, we watched this meteor storm. It was incredible. We brought our lawn chairs out and our blankets, and when you read Milo's Moonlight Mission, you will see some of these elements. The predicted meteor storm was even better than we expected. It was absolutely amazing. I'd never seen anything like it. and nature connected us as a family that night in a very quiet, meaningful way. We eventually watched the sun eclipse the stars, and while the kids were asleep, I immediately started writing about what I had seen. And by the way, for the 4 of us, my nephew, my daughter, my husband, and myself, this memory remains one of the most special memories of individually of our whole lives. So I wrote down my impressions and the story began to take shape. In the early stages, it was centered on the magnificence of the meteor storm itself. But where do you go from there? Getting from A to B to C to Z. It takes a long time. My early draft was very rough, and you will not see my early draft, but what you're looking here is some notes I took about my impressions, and I typed them in my computer, that bottom image. Then I start playing, usually on paper, and then that image on the left, I start storyboarding. So I'm laying out what is happening in the story and really counting on the page turns that a picture book needs to transition from one moment to the next. So here we are, okay, I have this nice family adventure going outside, and it's a story, but it's not enough for a picture book, and I don't know this right away. It took me a long time to figure that out. It had to be about something bigger. Yes, even bigger than a meteor storm, if you can imagine. So I realized, as much as I loved watching the storm, the people I shared it with were really what it was really about. And that's what turned it from a story into a picture book. When I hit upon this revelation, I began to revise furiously. I had to kill my darlings, as Faulkner says, and that wasn't easy because some of them were family members. When you read MILO'S Moonlight Mission, you'll see it's about a mom and a little boy. There's the other 2 characters in my original story are not there. And this is when Yeehoo Press comes in. This is the version of the story that caught Helen's eye. Helen was the acquiring editor on this story. So I sent Helen my story, and look at that. It's called Clear Skies, Storm Likely. So many things change as you go along in the book publishing process, even the title. In this case, so did the name of the main character. His name was Nick. The title was Clear Skies, Storm Likely. And it stayed that way for quite a while. I was delighted to get this email from Helen back in March of 2020, telling me that they wanted to acquire the manuscript. A very, very wonderful feeling. But new work was about to begin, and we revised and we went back and forth, and the collaboration really began. And I have to say, my experience with Yeehoo has been nothing short of fully collaborative, and that's been a delight because this is our book. I may have come up with the words, but they're bringing it into the world with the beautiful art of Petronella Dostalova. We'll look at that in just a minute. These are some of the things that happened along the way on the way to publication. They laid out the book, and you can see there's art notes here along with my text, and now it's beginning to take shape. Where are those page turns? I knew where they were. I thought I knew where they were, and I was mostly right. But then as you go along and you start putting the art notes in there, you know that some of the text can fall away. Another part of the revision, I mentioned that and this was pretty far along in the process when I got an email from Helen that said, can you come up with some alternate titles for your book? I was already used to this because with HOSEA Plays On, I had to change the title as well. And it's not a coincidence. The reason Helen wanted me to change the title was because it wasn't quite capturing what the story was about, which is why I revised the story to begin with. It wasn't about a meteor storm, it was about something else. So here's a couple of the titles I came up with: Mission Mom, Perfect Storm, and Nick's Wish. So main character's name is still Nick at this point. Helen said, oh, I really like mission. I like the word mission in there, but not Mission Mom because it's not Mom's story. And she was absolutely right. So then, because I'm a fan of alliteration, I said, can we change the name of the main character to Milo so it can go with mission? And she said, sure. And then we came up with Milo's Mission. And then another editor came in And she said, oh, I like that alliteration too, but I want another M word in there. So we came up with Milo's Moonlight Mission, Milo's Midnight Mission. That was another one, but this is the one that we settled on, and I'm very happy about that. And the meaning of the word mission, when you read the book, you'll see it's about, there's multiple meanings to that. So it really, this does capture what the story is about. Finally, after all that. So one thing that picture book writers always need to keep in mind is leaving room for the art. My local group had a meeting, monthly meeting recently, and this was talked about quite a bit, and it's so true. In a picture book, the illustrator carries much of the weight equally. The text comes from the writer, of course, but the art in the picture book needs to tell its own story. So even the fantastical elements of Milo's Moonlight Mission, you know, the theme of my talk here is truth. And you look at this book cover and you think, truth. There's a child flying a rocket ship. Where is the truth here? Petronella's art, which was really reflective of Yeehoo Press's vision and Helen's vision for the book, came to be have a fantastical element, which surprised me in the best of ways. Nowhere in the text do I ever say, let's go into Milo's imagination now. I don't even suggest it. And when I saw the book in this form, I was so surprised, and I thought it was just wonderful, and I was very happy. So leaving room for the art is not only fun, but surprising, and it just made it a better book. Here I'm showing you before the fantasy element really came into play. This is what the first spread of the book looks like. And these are my words that have been, this is what I submitted to Helen. Takeoffs, blastoffs, walks on the moon for Nick, Milo now, and his crew. The sky is the limit. So this is lovely. This is beautiful. He's adorable. And he's doing the things in my writer movie mind that I thought he would be doing. Then this. So look at that. We have gone well into his imagination. I never would have thought of this. And I'm so grateful for the vision that Yeehoo had for this. So here we go. Takeoffs, blastoffs, walks on the moon. For Milo and his crew, the sky is the limit. Almost the same words. But we're not only having Milo pretending here. This kid has an imagination, and it's soaring, and it's really lovely. So what I'd like to leave you with today is to encourage you to make your truth deliver an emotional impact in your stories. You can see how my daughter and my nephew and the experience that we had outside during this beautiful meteor storm, their relationship and the closeness that was experienced that night translated years later, look at that, years later, into a picture book where we see the warmth of a mother and a son experiencing something that I experienced with my family. It shows up in the pages of this book. So Milo's Moonlight Mission comes out June 15th with Yeehoo Press. And with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn our talk over to Helen.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. That's wonderful. Let me share my screen. So can you see my PowerPoint? Okay, yes. Perfect. Yeah. So sorry, wait a second. Let me play it. All right. Okay. Oops. Okay, perfect. So a little bit of short introduction about myself. I'm a children's book author and illustrator of over 20 picture books, as well as a translator, graphic designer, and publisher. I'm the associate publisher of Yeehoo Press, an independent children's book publisher based in Los Angeles, California. Yeehoo Press published the picture books, and we have a publishing partner in China, Phoenix Publishing and Media Group. It's one of the largest publishing houses in China. And we publish the English editions here in the US and the Chinese editions in China through our publishing partner. So our acquisition process is a little bit different than other houses there here. So we will evaluate the market potential of the manuscripts in the US market and in China market at the same time. And we also will, we have a list of we have a list of stories we like to acquire during a certain time, and we will also do a profit and loss statement. We publish picture books in the States, but in China we will also publish board books and graphic novels. So for those, and sometimes we will produce some products around those books. So the profit and loss statement for those different product line will be a little bit different. For big books published in the US, usually they're published individually and promoted individually. But for books published in China, it's very common that they're published and promoted in a set of books or in a collections. Sometimes these collection of books are from the same author and illustrator, and they feature the same main character. Sometimes they're from different authors and illustrators. Like the upper left corner, these are 6 books are from different author and illustrator. The stories, they don't have a connection to each other. They're totally different stories, but somehow the publisher find a common theme to all of these stories and put them together. Like they are all about emotion somehow. Sometimes they are all about nonfiction. Like on the right, these are all nonfiction stories about animals, like sea creatures, some of them about birds or about jungle animals, and some in another set could be all about historical figures. So when we acquire books, we need to think about how we could put different books in a set of books. So obviously you couldn't put like one book features historical figure and with nonfiction with, we'll talk about animals, right? So even though they are all about nonfiction, but they can be put in one set of books. So when we acquire books, we need to think about a list and how what kind of topic we want to develop. That's sometimes we kind of like a little bit slow at acquisition. And sometimes we don't send rejections to submissions, since when we develop a new list, we might go through all the old submissions and see if there are books that fit our list. So here is the publishing timeline. We will, for every submission, we will run through market research of specific topic or our list, and then we went to acquisition, and then it's the editorial development, and then it's illustration design, and then proofread, and then finally the galley, the digital galley is ready to send to reviews, and the pre-order and market research, and the marketing and sales will start, and then it's printing and shipping and warehousing, and then finally book launch. I want to mention a little bit about the seasons of the publishing. There were usually 2 seasons in a year. One is the spring season, which covers February to July, and the deadline to submit books to be published in the spring season is the August of the prior year. So it's basically 6 or like 10 months or even 11 months ahead of publishing. You have to get the book ready, at least you have a digital galley. So we will send those to our distributor, and our distributor will put up a catalog and collect all the data of those books and send to big national buyers such as Barnes Noble, Ingram, Bacon Taylor. So that's kind of like why I think that's one reason why in the US that the publishing is slow, since the books have to be ready, so many months ahead of the publishing. And the fourth season, for the fall season is August to January next year, and the deadline is February. So we are working, so for the fall season, we have 3 titles to publish this year, and all the books are already finished by February. So that's kind of like the timeline of publishing. Oh, that's our Yeehoo's new books. In spring, we have 4 titles. My Masterpiece, Vanishing Lake, When I'm Not Looking, and Milos' Moonlight Mission. And in the fall season, we have the Perfect Party, The Whole World Inside Nan's Soup, Chameleon Can Be. And basically, we're looking for books with universal appeal, educational purposes, and commercial hook. So today I'm gonna talk about the collaborative process of bookmaking of 2 books. The first book I'm gonna talk about is The Vanishing Lake by Patty Donnelly. This book, we published the Chinese edition last year, and it was so well received in China. And the English version was released 2 weeks ago, and was very well received here too. And we just several weeks ago, we got the news that the Chinese edition made it to a book list of the best children's book in China 2020. And it features a list of 24 books from 1,000 books published in China. And it was so amazing. So I'm gonna give you a short introduction of this book. It's about a little girl called Mira that she visits her grandpa. Sometimes her grandpa lives the side of a lake. Usually it's just an ordinary lake, but every so often, for whatever reason, the lake it would vanish, the whole thing gone. And the girl wants to find out why. And every time her grandpa tells some tall tales, like it could be the sheep that they go swimming and their wool soaks up all the water, or it could be the mermaids, they took out the plug of the lake, or it could be the narwhals doing headstands, and their homes poke the holes in the lake bed and all the water drains out. Or it could be like it's very cold in the night and all the lake frozen, and the giant over the moon use the use the lake as the ice cube. And of course, the little girl, she doesn't believe any of those tall tales, and she went out to explore the island and find the truth by herself. But she, no matter how she tried and she explored the tiny island, turning over every rock and pebble, still couldn't find the truth. And one day, her grandpa tells her and they to go with him somewhere, and they climb out a mountain, and they waited and waited until they saw something. I don't want to give away the ending to you, but as you can see, that's a story that's full of imagination. And we actually, this story was actually based on a real vanishing lake in Ireland from the author is from Ireland. And so that's based on the real vanishing lake, just besides of her hometown. So this makes this story kind of like have a really unique touch and have a personal touch. And our team was very amazed that there is a real vanishing lake there. And we did research like why the lake would vanish. And we also asked the professors in some university to, for the scientific explanation behind this geographic phenomena. And we also searched if there were any other vanishing lake in the world. And we do find that there is a lake called Lake George in Australia. It's also a vanishing lake. So one biggest difference between publishing in China and the US is that they, for the Chinese picture books, usually every book has afterward. Some of them are written by the editor, some were written by authors and illustrators to explain that why they wanted to make this book and why this topic is important, or how the author and illustrator got inspired to write such a story. So our team in China wrote the afterword based on the research we did, and it was very well received in the readers, that the kids actually learned some scientific things from the back matter and from the afterwards. So it's not only a story that full of imagination. It's there is some science and knowledge there. So at first we didn't think of adding a back matter to the English edition, since there is in the submission there is no back matter there. But since the Chinese edition, the back matter was so well received, and we think maybe we should add that to the English edition. And we asked the author, and the author agreed with that, and he is very happy to to write one and based on the version we provided. And we also discussed with him, like should it be a back matter or afterward, or should it be like author's note. So we decided to go for the author note, since this story was based on the real vanishing lake from the author's hometown. And Patty also sent us some pictures of the lake when he was there, that these pictures were taken by the author, and that's when the lake was full. The lake is called Lacrima, and that's, you can see this, the vanishing lake. So it is really, yes, it's called the vanishing lake. That's when the lake was empty, which was pretty amazing to us. And then he rewrote the whole thing in first person point of view, and added a lot of his childhood memory to the author's note. So in this way, it's not just a very neutral back matter or afterward. It has more personal touch to it. And with all those photos, our designer redesigned the whole thing, and it's just more visually appealing to young audience. So in this way, it's really have a personal touch there, and encourage kids to discover extraordinary stories everywhere. So that's how we made this book. And the next, I'm gonna talk about the making of my masterpiece by Amalia Hoffman. This on the left is the cover of the original submission. On the right was the final cover. As you can see that there's a lot of change. So first I want to read a little bit about the I want to read the original submission, and so you can have an idea of the revision process. So can you see the PDF? So, okay, perfect. The original title was How to Make a Ming Monster by Amalia Hoffman. Everyone knows that Ming monsters eat smelly socks, boiled bats, and wiggly worms, so I drew a monster with a huge tongue. Mom laughed. Can you imagine? That's a fat kitty, she said. Mom, it's supposed to be scary. Then I painted a monster with horrible sharp teeth. How cute, said my sister. Is this a tooth fairy? So I made a monster with pointy horns and scales. Owls are hard to paint. You did a great job, said Dad. Can I hang this in my office? Grrr. I tried making the biggest monster ever with disgusting tongue, sharp teeth, horns, claws, scales. Ta-da! I showed it to my best friend Noah. Why does your tiger have chicken feet? He asked. So I drew a monster with warts and pimples, and one with the longest nose and rotten teeth. But still, no one got scared. Then I started thinking, do monsters have to be scary? Maybe they have fun at the park. Maybe they like popcorn, pizza, movies. sandcastles. Maybe there is a monster who likes to draw scary humans. Maybe the monster shows his drawings to his friends. Ta-da! But no one gets scared. So the monsters start thinking, do humans have to be scary? Maybe humans could be as fun as monsters. So that's the original submission. We love it. We fell in love with it immediately. We think the art style was so unique and it's very inviting. Amalia used a lot of mixed media, and it really encouraged kids to grab a pen and brushes to do their own artwork. So and the monster theme is so fun, and the story features a frustrating artist, which is also very relatable to kids, and the changing perspective that thinking what monster will think of human is just so unique and fun, and also had the theme of overcoming barriers and stereotyping. So we love this, but we love this submission immediately. And then after acquisition, we had a phone call with Amalia, say how much she is willing to revise, and Amalia is really open to all kinds of new ideas, and we brainstormed with her, and she almost rewrote the whole thing and redrew the whole thing. And here I want to go through the revision so you could have a little bit idea of how we came from the original submission to the final book. So that's kind of like the, all the revisions, big revisions we went through. That's the first submission was in January, and the final book was in September. So that's really a long journey. So first we look at the text. So for the original submission, the storylines there, but we feel it could be streamlined somehow. Like the plot is simple and repeated, but the text, like sometimes mom laughs and she said, or if there is a pattern there, it's more predictable for young kids, and they can predict the plot and they can repeat it, and it will be very satisfying for them to read such a book. And we also think maybe instead of let the monster do any random things like what humans do, like let the monster like pizza, watch movies, or playing the playground, we probably can let the monster do something that the family and friends do. So in this way, the relationship between the monster and human beings is stronger, and it's more, there is just a stronger connection between the first part of the story and the second part of the story. So then we also added what the mom and dad and the sister and the friend is doing in the first part. So we, in the artwork, we also give a hint of what they are doing. So here, this is the revised text. So as we can see, I sneak up on mom, I sneak up on dad, I sneak up on my sister. So that's a pattern there. And we use raw to show the excitement of the kid when the kids show the artwork to the family and friends, and we use the girl to show the disappointment when the family and friends misunderstood the artwork. So this a pattern there is just more streamlined. And then that's the illustration revision. For this page, since we changed the pacing of the text on the right, there was only there were not this much text. We only keep the several lines, and the other half will be put in the next spread. So for this monster, though, it's very fun and we love it so much, but we hope this monster could stretch to the whole spread instead of staying just a half of the spread. And then Amalia did another monster, which is, we are so amazed that every time she did a monster using a different technique. So for this monster, we feel like the background is a little bit too dark, and somehow it looks like digital generated. And then Amalia did another monster. It's like a close collage, which was amazing. And it's another different technique with all the other monsters out there. So we settled on this monster and then added some background. So the popcorn is kind of like indicating what the dad is doing, like the dad is eating popcorn. So instead of showing a human character there, we just use popcorn to indicating what the dad is doing. And also the popcorn serves like a little bit of decoration of the page. Since there were just all monsters throughout the book, it's a little bit planned with some different decorations of everyday elements there. There were just more details and more things to look at on the page. And then that's the design stage that when our designer and our art director came in. So we all agreed that for this book, since it's very dramatic and it's very fun, we hope to have a lot of handwritten typeface. For our designer, handwritten this raw, but then we feel this raw, though it's handwritten, but it's very mature. The style looks like it was written by a dot instead of a kid, and the raw somehow it looks like part of the curly hair. And also for the typeface, our designer chosen and the color, it's different sizes of the text and the different colors. Since the artwork is already very busy and a lot of going on in the artwork, we hope the text can be just a simple. So there is a nice balance between the artwork and the text. And that's the one before design. And that's the one after design. As you can see that the raw, it's a nice handwritten style, but it's really, it's mimic the effect of like a kid handwritten. And the text is simple and they keep in the same size. And then the girl, as you can see, the raw, the H gets larger every time, and the girl, the R gets smaller to show the disappointment, and the raw to show the excitement. So the we use the design to kind of like carry some of the emotional change of the character. And that's the one before design. And that's the one after design. We also added the 3D elements of the sandcastle to indicate what the family and friends are doing. And the raw, actually every time the kid shows the artwork, the raw gets longer and longer. It's also one way to show the emotion gets stronger every time. And it's like shouting and the dancing effect there. So this is the last spread. We also have, since there were just one line, we are discussing this for multiple rounds, like how we should put this one line, since it's a frame there, and if we put that line out of the frame, it looks like a double frame, which wasn't as good as it could be. And also the red frame with buttons, it's really amazing, but the red color just pop up too much, and this grab a lot of our attention. We look at the frame first instead of the painting. And then our designer came up with an idea to maybe we should widen the frame, and Amalia redid the frame and use some different kinds of buttons. So there were buttons, but not too many. And also this orange color is a nice echo of the jacket of the book. Since it's the last page, it's nicely echo with the jacket. And we also put one line up and one line down, so it has a nice balance there. So there were a lot of things changed during this revision, but we are really happy with the results. And then finally, so the cover, title and cover, we also changed the title of this book. The original title was How to Make Ming Monsters. It was a very cute title, but it actually didn't carry the theme of this book very clear as the theme of this book was about overcoming bears, and it also have a strong like art creation theme there. And for this cover, we feel it's very cute. We love this paper tearing effect, but somehow we want it has more art creation to be reflected in the cover. So Amalia and our team, we brainstormed a lot of titles, and finally she came up with this My Masterpiece, and we love this clever wordplay. That's my monster masterpiece, and we immediately fell in love with this title, and we settled on this one. And for the cover, we think the green color is just not that exciting compared to the whole book. And then Amalia did another cover to reflect the art theme of the book, but the first one, we feel there were some frames there, but we feel it's like too many elements scattered around, and the green tone is a little bit gross. And then our designer came up something in the middle. It's a monster, but it still doesn't reflect the art creation theme of the story. And then we went back to the original design, the layout of the original cover. We love that paper tearing effect, but somehow we just wanted to reflect a little bit more about the art creation and craft. So Amalia think maybe we should just let the kid and the monster to hold a pen or brush. So this perfectly solved this issue. And then we tried all different kinds of color palettes. We tried orange and this tint color and some blue, and we all love this blue and white combination. And it really pops out, and it's very playful and reflects the theme of the story very much. And that's almost the final cover. And then our designer come up different effect of the title. One is a watercolor effect. Another is pen stroke effect. And though there is a watercolor brush there, we all think the pen effect is kind of like more powerful and stand out more, and it reflects more of the monster theme of the story. So we all choose this the one in the middle, and then we think about what color to choose for the title. Should we use black since black stands out more, or is it purple better since the yellow goes better with the purple? So we finally settled on the one in the middle. And that's the final cover. On the left is the English cover, and on the right is the Chinese cover. So I'm gonna read the final book, and so you can have a little bit idea of the final results. My Masterpiece by Amalia Hoffman. This is the jacket of the book. So as you can see, that's the on the left, that's a blurb of the story. On the right, it's the bio of the author. And that's the cover underneath the jacket. So for all of our books, we have a jacket. This and the paper, so that's Monster and Say Hi. It's just so cute. I want to make the scariest monster ever. It's going to have a long green tongue. It will be a monster masterpiece. My masterpiece. I sneak up on Mom, who is munching on a chocolate chip cookie, and rah! I love this chirpy kitty, Mom says. Grrr. I guess my monster with long green tongue isn't scary. What if I make a monster with pointy horns on its head? I sneak up on Dad, who's gobbling popcorn, and rah! Great job painting an owl, says Dad. May I hang it in my office? Grrr. I guess my monster with pointy horns on its head isn't scary. What if I make a monster with creepy sharp teeth? I sneak up on my sister Sue, who is coloring with crayons, and rah! Sue draws purple wings on my monster. It's so cute, she says. Is it the tooth fairy? Grrr. I guess my monster with creepy sharp teeth isn't scary. So I make a monster with a long green tongue, pointy horns, creepy sharp teeth, and terrible claws too. I sneak up on my best friend John, who's building a sandcastle, and rah! That's so funny, John laughs. A tiger with chicken feet. Grrr. I give up. I can't make a monster piece. My monsters aren't scary at all. But wait, I have an idea. Maybe monsters don't have to be scary. What if there is a monster who loves chocolate chip cookies just like mom? What if there is a monster who gobbles up popcorn just like dad? What if there is a monster who loves to color with crayons just like my sister Sue? And you see this, there are some words on the crayons: Ming green, purple, snuggle, stink pink, yellow fellow, blue goo, orange courage. This is just so fun and cute. What if there is a monster who loves building sandcastles just like my best friend John? What if there's a monster who loves to make scary things just like I do? What would a monster like that make pictures of a scary kid? Would he sneak up on his mom, dad, sister, and best friend and rah? What if his mom loves it and his dad asks to hang it in his office and his sister draws wings on it and his best friend laughs? Great drawing, love it, haha, cute. Grrr. Maybe the monster would think, what if kids don't have to be scary? What if kids are just as fun as monsters? Ta-da! My monster piece. The end. Say bye. So yeah, that's basically the making of these two books. And as you can tell that every book has a different journey. Every book is the fruit of collaboration, love, and belief. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone. I think there were some comments in the chat. If you guys want to stick around for a little bit, you don't have to, but there was some comments that would be, well, there's lots of compliments in there, Helen. I'm sure you can see that.
Yeah.
Taking us through the process. There was a, oh, here we go. There was a question.
I haven't turned on the chat yet.
Okay, so Valerie McPherson asks, when you talk about storyboarding for page turns, do you work on that as you write, or do you wait and work on them once your story is shaped? That's a good question. So my process when I began writing picture books was exactly that. I didn't storyboard right away, but I find that I need it in order to write the story. We did storyboard. I did do a dummy for Yeehoo. They asked me to submit a document with the page turns. It wasn't hard for me to do that because I had already done it, because I find as a writer I need to see those 32 pages on a huge piece of white paper. I draw them. I even sketch. I would never show anybody these sketches, but I need to visually to see what's going on in a scene. And I do use the storyboard as a creator, whether I know the book is going to be published or not. But then again, as Helen said, that's part of that is a really important tool in the revision process too. Okay, someone says, I've written a children's picture book. I have drawn pictures on pages 6 to 29 to show the spreads. The book is called Gratitude Grows and Flowers Play a Large Role. I'm not an artist or qualified illustrator. Should I submit the artwork too? I have completed art activities with children based on the story.
You don't need to worry about the artwork. You can just submit the text only, and we will pair you with a professional illustrator with it. Different stories have different style, and we will also choose artists based on the story. And some art styles kind of like very traditional. Some styles like digital or quirky. And we will look at the story and pair you with some artists whose style fits this story the best.
I personally thought when I began my journey as a children's writer a huge sense of relief to know that I didn't have to provide the art or even have, say, this is who I want to be the artist. The publisher has the vision, and Yeehoo with Milo, they had a vision. I remember the email I got from you, Helen, that said, when you're considering illustrators, and you said something about magical realism and fantasy. And I thought, is she talking about my manuscript? Because I didn't see it that way. So the vision of the publisher is really important, and they know. And same with HOSEA. As I'm writing HOSEA, I don't see the color palette that Sterling chose for that. Here it is right next to me. I saw a very warm, kind of gritty, jazzy kind of colors. So when I first saw the art for HOSEA, I was blown away. I understand why they chose, and they are certainly qualified as Yeehoo, as publishers have their art director and all the whole team marketing, all is involved in these decisions to determine which is the art that can best carry the story. So I was really happy I didn't have to worry about that when I just can worry about the words.
Barbara asked, what age does the picture book genre end? I think for picture book, usually it's for children ages 3 to 8. Sometimes it could go a little bit older, but 3 to 8 is kind of like the general age range.
That's the neat thing about picture books too, is the books that we're looking at today are for the younger reader. But it's lovely to know that picture books with pretty hefty content can go up to even older. And they are for the adults too. We know that the adults are the ones who make the decisions oftentimes for which books to buy. A little funny story about HOSEA Plays On. When my father read the story, he asked this very question: what is the age group for this book? And it's 4 to 8. And he said, I don't agree with that. It should be 4 to 99, because the adults have to enjoy it too. Thank you for the nice comments in the chat. We appreciate that very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Have a great day.
Thank you.